insurance companies with not a shred of redeeming value in it. But it's terrific news because they got a Republican on it. The fourth thing I saw, I try to catch the headlines as I'm going from event to event in the car. Obama's Justice Department is now working on an appeal of a ruling that I'm sure offends all of you as much as it offends Obama's Justice Department. This was a ruling that said that the FBI has to make public the transcript of the interview that Dick Cheney did about how he outed a CIA agent. How many people know who Valerie Plame is? Okay, well, there is strong evidence that Dick Cheney was behind outing her secret identity, putting her and others' lives at risk as punishment for her husband who had exposed some of the lies that took us into Iraq. And Dick Cheney did an interview with the FBI, and now a court said, got to make that public. Well, the Justice Department is working on an appeal of that so that we can look forward. You guys may want to look backward, we got to look forward. And so the Justice Department is appealing cases to keep torture and spying secret. They've maintained just now that in regard to keeping information from the public, phone companies are part of the executive branch of our government. They probably didn't teach you that. The British government was possibly going to expose some evidence of torture by the United States. The United States threatened to cut off all sharing of intelligence with our special friend, the United Kingdom. This is the Obama White House. Bush and Cheney used to say state secrets, right? There's a piece of information they don't want a court to see. They'll say, no, that's a state secret, that's national security. The Obama administration says sovereign immunity. And they say state secrets, and they mean something completely different. They claim that they can block an entire case, not just a piece of information, but an entire case, by saying state secrets, sovereign immunity. Right? This is something you haven't heard about since we had real royalty. And you get these positive reform announcements, right? The White House puts out a new policy. We're not going to make claims of state secrets except when our lawyers look it over really carefully first. Right? Or we're going to let you see the White House visitor logs except for those ones you want that we already have, except when we think national security is a matter. Or we're not going to change the bills we sign into law with signing statements except when we really, really have to. Right? So this is where you have to remember those three branches of government that we used to think we had, because none of these reforms give an ounce of power to anything other than the executive branch. And whoever runs it now, and whoever runs it in 4 years or 8 years or 20 years, most of what we know about from the Bush-Cheney crime spree is still secret. Most of the memos we know about have not been released because they've not been ordered released by a court yet. The videos, they have videos of people being tortured. The photos, the reports, their own reports on their lawyers who wrote torture memos and so on. All being kept secret. Not to mention what good old Donald Rumsfeld would call the unknown unknowns. That is, we don't know what most of the memos and reports and photos and videos are, but they're secret too. Why do you think you would keep so much information secret and fight so hard to keep it secret and protect people and give them retroactive immunity when they're on the other team? Why would you do that? Because the teams are not the Republicans and the Democrats. The teams are these people in power and the rest of us. Those are the teams. We're a team and they're a team. There are now people above the law who make the laws, and there's the rest of us under the rule of law who have to obey them and have very little say in making them. Those are the teams. The Democrats and the Republicans are not how the world is divided. We try to have representation in our government, and we think, well, we'll have an election, and an election will fix things, right? But an election months now as if we had a coup, not an election. Right? And we did have a coup in 2000 and another one in 2004, so you can't blame us for mistaking it this time. But we had an election in 2008. And after an election, you've made a deal. Your part of the deal is to get out there and tell them how you want to be represented. Instead, we behaved as if we had a coup. Instead of investing in and putting our energies into the movements for peace and justice that we had up and running when it was almost hopeless, now we have a chance. We defund them. We demobilize. We shut down organizations entirely. We stay home because I'm going to be respectful and treat this guy as a dictator. It's not respectful. It's not respectful. What President Obama says, get out there and make me do it, I don't know if he means that. He obviously never listens to us, but it's the right thing. However, it has always been almost impossible to influence a president. A president takes far too much money, is too much under the focus of the corporate media, can ignore whole regions of the country. You can't talk to him. There's the Secret Service there. The president can hardly be influenced by us. And the senators are almost as bad. And that's why things that you can do with one house of Congress are interesting. Because there is one house of Congress where we have a fighting chance. Even with the corruption of the money and the corruption of the media and the parties and the gerrymandering and the ballot access rules, we still have a fighting chance with the House of Representatives. So this whole, we elected a good guy, and I like him, and he's got a cute dog, and his daughters wear nice clothes, and he roots for the same sports team as me, and deep in his heart I know he believes the same stuff I do. It's not that we voted for the wrong guy. You get two choices. You vote for the better one. It's an act of 30 seconds, and then you get to work. The expectations are misguided. The disappointment is misguided. You don't have to go through that whole cycle after every election. Skip it and start getting to work. Who knows what Article 1 of our Constitution is about? City Council member knows. Nobody knows what Article 1 of the Constitution is about.
Freedom of speech.
That's the First Amendment. That comes after the very end of the Constitution when you start amending it. Yes, sir.
About Congress?
It is about Congress, and it takes up 60% of our Constitution. It is the first branch of our government. It's given just about every power they could imagine. And then you have these puny little Articles 2 and 3 about the executive and the Supreme Court. Right? That's how the Constitution sets it up. Written by people who had fought a war to get rid of this idea of having one guy run the country. So they make a very weak executive who's required to faithfully execute the laws as passed by Congress, who is to be our diplomat with other countries, and who is to be the commander in times of war declared by Congress over an army raised and funded and regulated by Congress. And that's it. He doesn't get anything else. Right? He can start treaties and appointments, but Congress has to ratify. The power to make law is now basically in the White House. And not just because the president goes and tells Congress what laws to make, and they ask him, oh, please, can't you write the bill for us? And people say, oh, can't he be a leader and write the bills for Congress? Congress is so lousy. That is a fundamental problem. But on top of that, once you pass a bill, the president rewrites it with a signing statement. Now, President Obama could have thrown out Bush's signing statements that altered laws. Or more realistically, Congress could have. But they haven't. Instead, President Obama has started writing his own signing statements that alter laws. And he hasn't written as many, they're not as egregious, but they cement in place in a way that one administration by itself can't do. That's the way things are done now. We now have laws made by executive orders. We have major public policy decisions made by executive orders. Right? And the new president will come in and throw out the signing statements he doesn't like and keep the ones he likes. And throw out the executive orders he doesn't like and keep the ones he likes. Right? So we go from one man's idea of how our laws should be to another man's, maybe someday a woman's, and so on. None of that is cut president's laws, but they keep them secret. They don't show them to us until they start to get into trouble, and then they say, you know, we got this memo so we could do it. And what does the new Congress do? Basically nothing. And what does the new president do? Says the former president and vice president who now go on television and confess to felonies are immune. Raise your hand if you think torture is a felony. Good. Thank God, because we went through 8 years of pretending that we had to ban torture. Congress repeatedly banned torture. Bush signed a statement and did it away. Then they banned torture and gave an exception for the CIA. During this whole charade, every form of torture, every act of complicity in torture was a felony under the U.S. Code. In a law that's been there since Clinton was president, enforcing a treaty that's been there since Ronald Reagan signed it. Obama says that these guys are immune. Don't touch them, leave them alone, forget about it. And the lawyers who wrote these secret memos, no, they meant well. They thought torture was a good idea. They weren't thinking. They didn't have much sleep that night. Leave them alone. But if there's any low-ranking contractors who may be strayed from the illegal policies in the secret memos, we might be able to prosecute them. Which only more firmly cements in place the idea that a president can say to his lawyer, write me a memo to legalize this crime, and it is legalized. If anybody can think of something that you cannot do with that power, tell me what it is, because that looks like absolute power to me. The power to make war is now in the White House. Bush made wars without declarations and with vague authorizations that he didn't comply with, and he started the wars before he got those with money that had been appropriated for something else, and he lied about it, and he went to the UN to try to get it legalized, and they said no, because we and the people around the world stood up and said, you better say no, and he went ahead and did it anyway. We now have mercenaries fighting our wars, who are not under the rule of law and not under the oversight of Congress. We have drones. We have guys out in the western states of this country sitting at television screens playing video games, killing people in Pakistan with drones. And we don't think it's a war, because we're not putting at risk the lives of a certain type of human being. But to the people on the ground, it looks like a war that nobody has even pretended to authorize in any way. We have money spent by the president without Congress. We have bailouts for bankers where Congress isn't allowed to even know what's happening. There's a bill sitting in Congress right now that has over a majority already signed on as co-sponsors. Nancy Pelosi just has to let them have a vote and it passes. That doesn't say Congress gets to control how we raise and spend money. Just says that Congress gets to see what the Federal Reserve does. That's it. That's it. How scandalous. And of course we have massive secret budgets anyway, that under Bush and Cheney, 8 Congress members got to know something about sometimes. Treaties. The president is supposed to be allowed to go make a treaty, but then 2/3 of the senators present have to say okay. So Bush goes to the occupied government of Iraq, to our puppet president in Iraq. He says, let's make a treaty, because the UN fig leaf for the occupation of Iraq is going to run out last December. And so they make this treaty for 3 years of war. So there's a war power, a treaty, and there's a treaty with a puppet government for 3 years of war in Iraq. And they never ask the Senate anything. And a senator named Biden, I forget where he is now, but there's a guy named Biden, he puts in a bill that says we won't fund the occupation of Iraq unless the Senate gets to vote this treaty up or down. There's a senator named Barack something who starts talking the same way. But then he gets to be president, and Biden gets to be vice president, and they have nothing to legalize the occupation of Iraq except this lousy treaty. And so now it's the law of the land, except that our generals are openly saying they won't comply with it. And they're already not complying with it. And the thing that everybody liked about it, which was all U.S. forces out by the end of 2011, they're openly saying that they aren't going to do that. And why would they when they're building bases that look like cities in Iraq? I think the people who sort of said, let's hush up and accept this treaty because it ends a war, even if it's 3 years hence, need to sit down with some Native Americans and talk about treaties and how treaties work. Because Congress can't say you're not complying with the treaty because Congress wasn't asked about it in the first place. There's going to be another treaty.